Commander stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the blue planet below. Earth, the 74th world that would fall to the Empire. He felt no excitement, no fear. This was just another job, another conquest to add to his record. "Status report," he said to his second officer. "All landing ships are ready, Commander. 1 million soldiers standing by, heavy armor loaded, atmospheric gunships fueled and armed." Nodded 1 million soldiers. The number had never failed before. The way of war was simple. Send more troops than the enemy could handle, accept the casualties. Win through sheer weight of numbers. 73 worlds had fallen to this strategy. Earth would be no different. "What do we know about their military?" asked. His intelligence officer pulled up a holographic display. "Primitive by our standards, Commander. They only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. No energy shields, no plasma weapons, kinetic projectile weapons mostly, chemical propellants." "How many soldiers do they have?" "Approximately 12 million across their entire planet." Allowed himself a small smile. 12 million spread across a whole world. We're bringing 1 million to a single location. They won't be able to concentrate forces fast enough to stop us. The intelligence officer hesitated. "Sir, there is one concern. Human history shows they're quite experienced at warfare. They've fought each other for thousands of years." "So have most species before they unified," said. "It means nothing. Begin the invasion." 200,000 miles away, Lieutenant Colonel Jake sat in a command center deep underground. He watched the alien fleet on his screens. 67 ships, all broadcasting their positions openly. No attempt at stealth, no tactical maneuvering. They were just flying straight toward Earth like they owned the place. "They're not even trying to hide," said Major Lisa Grant, his intelligence officer. She stood next to his chair, studying the same displays. "I've never seen anything like it." Jake frowned. "Pull up everything we have on the how do they usually fight." Lisa typed rapidly on her console. Data filled the screens. Reports from the 17 other species that had made contact with Earth. Warnings about the Empire, records of their conquests. "They use overwhelming numbers," Lisa said. "Every invasion follows the same pattern. They land a huge army, form it up in traditional formations, then march forward. They take heavy casualties but don't care. They just keep coming until the defenders break." "Traditional formations?" Jake asked. "What does that mean?" "Think ancient Earth warfare. Columns of troops, heavy weapons in the center, infantry spreading out in organized lines. They don't use guerrilla tactics or advanced strategy, just straightforward assault." Jake leaned back in his chair. "And this works?" "It's worked 73 times. Most species they've conquered fought the same way. Army against army, battle lines, territorial advancement. The win because they're willing to lose more soldiers than anyone else." "How many are they bringing?" "Intelligence estimates 1 million soldiers for the initial landing." Jake whistled softly. "That's a lot of targets in one place." Lisa looked at him sharply. "Targets, not soldiers." "Did I say something wrong?" She shook her head slowly. "No, just interesting choice of words." Defense Minister Peter entered the command center. He was a stocky man in his 50s, former Air Force general, now responsible for coordinating Earth's military response. He looked tired but calm. "What's the situation?" he asked. Jake pointed at the screens. "They'll be in landing range within 3 days. Current trajectory suggests they're heading for the American Midwest." "Kansas," Lisa added. "Flat terrain, agricultural regions, low population density, good landing zone if you're planning traditional warfare." Peter nodded. "I've called an emergency meeting of the Global Security Council. We need to decide on our response strategy." "We have 12 million soldiers worldwide," Jake said. "But they're spread across every continent. Even if we started mobilizing now, we couldn't concentrate enough forces in Kansas to match their numbers before they establish a beachhead." "I know," Peter said quietly. "That's why we're not going to try." Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. "Sir," Lisa asked. "I've been studying the invasion records," Peter said. "Every species they conquered tried to fight them on their terms. Mass armies, traditional battles. It never worked. They always have more soldiers and they don't mind losing them." "So what do we do?" Jake asked. "We fight on our terms, not theirs." Peter pulled up a tactical display. General is coordinating the response. She's proposing something the politicians are having trouble accepting. What's that? She says we're not fighting an army, we're processing targets, and Earth is very good at processing targets efficiently. The meeting with the Global Security Council happened 6 hours later. Representatives from every major nation appeared on video screens around the conference table. General stood at the head of the table. She was a tall woman with gray hair and cold blue eyes. She had commanded forces in 3 regional conflicts and earned a reputation for being brilliant and ruthless. "They will land in approximately 60 hours, she began. They'll deploy 1 million soldiers in a concentrated area, probably somewhere in the central United States. Their doctrine calls for establishing a beachhead, then radiating outward in traditional assault formations." "Can we stop them?" asked the Chinese representative. "We already have," said, "they just don't know it yet." Confused murmurs filled the room. "Explain," Peter said. Pulled up a tactical map. "They are making 3 critical mistakes. First, they're concentrating their entire force in one location. Second, they're using predictable formations based on pre-industrial warfare tactics. Third, they're assuming we'll fight them the way everyone else has fought them." "And we won't?" asked the European Federation representative. "We won't fight them at all," said. "Fighting implies 2 armies engaging in combat. What we're going to do is more like pest control, industrial-scale pest control." The room went silent. "You're talking about a massacre," someone said quietly. "I'm talking about defending Earth efficiently," replied. "They are coming here to kill us and conquer our world. They've done it to 73 other species. They're not interested in negotiation or peace. They want us dead or enslaved. I'm proposing we solve that problem with the minimum risk to our personnel." "How?" Peter asked. "Precision weapons, artillery, airstrikes, all from beyond their engagement range. They want to fight like it's the 18th century. We'll fight like it's the 22nd. They'll never see our soldiers. They'll never get close enough to shoot back. We'll serve as targets until there are no targets left." "Service targets," the Russian representative repeated. "You make it sound like factory work." "Modern warfare is factory work," said. "It's logistics, mathematics, and industrial capacity. The side with better technology and organization wins. They have numbers, we have precision. They're about to learn which matters more." Jake listened to the discussion continue for another hour. Arguments about ethics, about proportional response, about what this would mean for Earth's reputation in the galaxy. But in the end, the decision was unanimous. Earth would defend itself using every advantage it possessed. 3 days later, the fleet reached Earth orbit, watched his landing ships descend through the atmosphere. 67 ships carrying 1 million soldiers, along with their armor, weapons, and supplies. The largest invasion force they had ever deployed. The ships landed in Kansas, just as Earth's intelligence had predicted. The doors opened and soldiers poured out, watched from his command vehicle as they formed up in perfect columns. 1 million troops organizing themselves with practiced efficiency. No human forces appeared to oppose them. The nearby towns were empty, the highways deserted, smiled. The humans were running, gathering their forces elsewhere. By the time they organized a response, his beachhead would be unbreakable. "Begin the march," he ordered. 1 million soldiers began moving forward in tight formation. Above them, beyond visual range, 47 stealth aircraft held position at 60,000 feet. In each aircraft, weapons operators checked their targeting systems and waited for the order to fire. The Army marched through Kansas farmland under clear blue skies, rode in his command vehicle near the center of the formation. Around him, 1 million soldiers moved in organized columns. Heavy tanks and artillery pieces rolled along the roads. Atmospheric gunships flew overhead in patrol patterns. Everything was going according to plan. "Commander, we've advanced 12 miles from the landing zone," reported his tactical officer. "No contact with enemy forces." Studied the map display. Small human settlements dotted the landscape ahead. All appeared abandoned. "They're running, gathering their forces for a counterattack." "Should we spread out our formation? We're quite concentrated." "No, maintain standard assault formation. When the humans attack, I want our heavy weapons able to provide mutual support. Concentration is strength." The tactical officer looked uncertain but nodded. The way had worked for 73 conquests. No reason to change now. 20 miles ahead, Jake watched satellite feeds from his underground command center. The alien army looked like something from an ancient history book. Neat columns stretching for miles, vehicles clustered together, officers visible at regular intervals, coordinating movement. "They're actually doing it," Lisa said beside him, "marching in formation like they're on parade." "Density analysis?" Jake asked. Lisa pulled up a thermal imaging overlay. "They've compressed even since landing. Current concentration is approximately 1 million personnel in a 12-square-mile area. Heavy equipment clustered in the center, infantry spread in predictable patterns around the perimeter." 12 square miles, Jake repeated. He pulled up another screen showing available air assets. "We have 47 bombers on station, each carrying 80 guided munitions. That's 3,760 precision weapons." 3,760 targets serviced, Lisa said quietly. "General wants them in the valley system before we engage. Another 8 miles. Why wait? Terrain, the valleys will limit their dispersion options. Once we hit them, they'll try to scatter. The valley walls will slow that down, keep them concentrated longer for follow-up strikes." Lisa looked at Jake. "You're talking about this like it's a math problem." "Isn't it? They brought 1 million soldiers to one location. We have the weapons to address that concentration. It's just numbers and geometry." "It's also 1 million living beings." Jake met her eyes. 1 million beings who came here to kill us, to conquer Earth. You read the reports, Lisa. They don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. Every world they've conquered, they killed anyone who resisted and enslaved the rest. That's not war, that's extermination. "I know," Lisa said softly. "Doesn't make this feel any less wrong. Would it feel better if we sent our soldiers to die fighting them hand to hand? Because that's the alternative. Traditional battle. Mass casualties on both sides, except we'd lose because they have the numbers." Before Lisa could respond, General entered the command center. She looked at the screens showing the advance. "They're entering the valley system now," she said. 20 minutes until they reach the optimal engagement point. All bombers report ready. Artillery batteries are in position. Ground forces are standing by for cleanup operations." "Cleanup operations," Jake said. "That's a clinical way to describe it." "Would you prefer I call it a slaughter?" asked. Her voice was cold. "Because that's what it is. They are about to be destroyed. They walked into a kill zone, organized themselves perfectly for maximum weapon efficiency, and are about to learn what modern warfare actually means." "You don't sound happy about it," Lisa observed. I'm a soldier, not a butcher. But I'm also not stupid enough to fight the enemy on their terms when I can fight them on mine." Pulled up the bomber feeds. "In 20 minutes, we're going to kill more enemy soldiers than died in most historical wars. It's going to be quick, efficient, and completely one-sided. That's not glorious. But glory isn't my job, protecting Earth is." The army marched deeper into the valley system. Noticed the terrain changing. Hills rising on either side, funneling his forces into a narrower corridor. His tactical instincts warned him this was dangerous ground, perfect ambush territory. "Scouts report the valleys ahead," his officer said. "No signs of enemy forces. Keep the gunships on high alert. If the humans are going to attack, it will be here." "Should we slow our advance, wait for reconnaissance?" Considered it, but slowing down meant giving the humans more time to organize. Speed was essential. "No, maintain pace, all units weapons ready, expect contact at any moment." The army moved forward, soldiers gripping their weapons, scanning the hills for any sign of enemy troops. The gunships increased their patrol radius, searching for hidden forces. They were looking in the wrong direction. The threat wasn't in the hills or behind cover. It was 60,000 feet above them, invisible and silent. In the bomber-designated Strike Leader 1, Captain Danny Wright checked his weapons display. 80 GPS-guided munitions, each weighing 500 pounds, each accurate to within 3 feet of its programmed coordinates. Behind him, 46 other bombers held the same. "Strike Leader to all units, final weapons check," he said over the radio. 46 voices confirmed ready status. "Targets have entered the engagement zone," came the voice of the mission controller. "Authorization confirmed. You are cleared to engage." Danny felt his stomach tighten. He had flown combat missions before, but never anything like this. Never against an army that had no idea he was there, never with this level of overwhelming force. "Target packages downloading now," his weapons officer said. "We have lock on all 80 targets." Danny looked at his screen. Each bomber had been assigned specific coordinates within the formation: command vehicles, ammunition trucks, artillery pieces, troop concentrations. The computers had analyzed the alien army, identified the highest value targets, and distributed weapons to maximize casualties. It was warfare reduced to pure mathematics. Input: 1 million enemy soldiers in 12 square miles. Output: maximum destruction using minimum resources. "All aircraft, this is Strike Leader," Danny said. "Release on my mark 3, 2, 1 mark." 3,760 bombs fell from their racks and began their descent. Guidance systems activated, small fins adjusting trajectory, GPS receivers confirming position against satellite data. The bombs fell silently through the thin air at high altitude. Was reviewing tactical maps when his world exploded. The first impacts hit the center of his formation, where the heaviest vehicles were concentrated. Massive explosions threw tanks into the air like toys. Ammunition trucks detonated, sending secondary blasts rippling through nearby units. Then the bombs hit everywhere at once. The valley system became hell. Explosions marched through the columns with mechanical precision. Every bomb found its target. Command vehicles disintegrated. Artillery pieces were torn apart. Troop columns simply ceased to exist, replaced by craters and debris. His vehicle was hit by a near miss. The blast flipped it sideways and sent it rolling. He was thrown against the wall, his armor absorbing most of the impact. When the vehicle stopped moving, he crawled toward the hatch. Outside, he found himself in a nightmare. His organized army had become chaos. Fires burned everywhere. Soldiers ran in all directions, many wounded, all panicked. Officers screamed orders that no one could hear over the explosions still erupting across the battlefield. "Air attack," someone shouted. "Take cover." But there was no cover. The valley walls offered some protection, but the bombs were still falling. Tried to count the impacts, to assess the damage, but there were too many. Hundreds of explosions, maybe thousands, all happening within minutes. In the command center, Jake watched the thermal imaging display. The concentrated mass of the army was breaking apart, replaced by scattered heat signatures and cold zones where nothing lived anymore. "Preliminary damage assessment," Lisa said, her voice shaking slightly. "Estimated 200,000 casualties, maybe more. Their formation is completely disrupted. Heavy equipment losses at 90%. Command and control appears destroyed." "Artillery batteries?" asked. "Ready to fire. We have updated coordinates on surviving troop concentrations." "Execute fire mission." 40 miles away, hidden artillery batteries received their targeting data. Big guns elevated to precise angles calculated by computers. Each shell was a smart munition, able to adjust its trajectory mid-flight, guaranteed to land within meters of its intended target. The guns fired in sequence, a rolling thunder that lasted for 2 minutes. Hundreds of shells arced through the sky toward the valley system where they were trying to regroup. Heard a new sound, a whistling, growing louder. He looked up and saw nothing but sky. Then the first artillery shell landed 200 feet away, and he understood. They weren't just being bombed. They were being systematically destroyed from multiple directions by an enemy they couldn't see and couldn't reach. Another shell landed closer, then another. The humans weren't firing at random. They were firing at specific locations, hitting clusters of survivors with terrifying accuracy. "Retreat," shouted into his communicator. "All units scatter and retreat." But retreat to where? The valley system that had seemed like safe advancement terrain was now a trap. His soldiers ran in all directions, trying to escape the mechanical precision of the human attack. In the sky, the gunships tried to respond. They flew toward where they thought the attack was coming from, weapons hot. But the bombers were already 60 miles away, climbing higher, and the artillery was beyond their range. The gunships found nothing to shoot at. Below them, the army they were supposed to protect was being erased from existence by weapons they couldn't counter and enemies they couldn't find. Jake watched the casualty estimates climb. 400,000, 500,000. The numbers were abstract, just data on screens. But each number represented a living being that had been alive minutes ago. "Artillery fire mission complete," Lisa reported. Total shells expended, 200,000 rounds. Target dispersion is increasing. Survivors are scattering into smaller groups. Phase 3 asked. Ground units are moving in. Attack helicopters are en route. We're tracking approximately 300,000 scattered survivors. Nodded, continue engagement. No let-up until organized resistance ends. The massacre continued into the evening. Night fell over Kansas, but the killing did not stop. Attack helicopters equipped with thermal imaging swept across the battlefield in coordinated patterns. The surviving showed up as bright heat signatures against the cold ground, impossible to hide, easy to target. Captain Laura Hayes piloted her helicopter in wide circles over what had been farmland that morning. Now it was a wasteland of craters and debris. Her thermal display showed clusters of soldiers hiding in tree lines and old farm buildings. Target cluster identified, her weapons officer said. Grid reference 77 Alpha, approximately 40 contacts. Laura checked the coordinates. A barn partially collapsed with heat signatures packed inside. Survivors trying to hide from an enemy they still couldn't see. Confirmed engaging. The helicopter's weapons system locked on. A burst of cannon fire shredded the barn in seconds. The heat signatures disappeared from her display. Target serviced, moving to next grid. This was her 8th engagement in 2 hours. Before tonight, she had never fired weapons at enemy ground forces. She was trained for it, prepared for it, but training did not prepare you for the reality of hunting living beings with thermal sensors and high-explosive rounds. How many more? She asked her co-pilot. Command estimates 200,000 to 300,000 scattered survivors. 12 helicopter teams are working the area. It's going to be a long night. Crouched in a drainage ditch with 6 surviving soldiers from his command unit. He had lost contact with his fleet in orbit. His communicator was damaged, and he suspected the human attack had destroyed his main transmission equipment anyway. 6 soldiers from his personal command of 200. He tried not to think about the rest. Tried not to remember the bombing, the artillery, the systematic destruction of his entire army in less than 4 hours. "Commander, we need to move," one of his soldiers whispered. "Those flying machines are getting closer. I can hear them." Could hear them too. A distant thumping sound growing louder, then fading as the aircraft moved to different areas. Hunting. That's what they were doing, hunting his soldiers like animals. "We wait until the sound fades, then we run for that forest line," said, pointing to trees half a mile away. "Stay low, don't cluster together. If they spot us, scatter immediately." "Commander, what are we fighting? Where is the human army?" "There is no army," said quietly. "At least not when we can fight. They're killing us from distances we can't reach, with weapons we can't counter. This is not a battle, it's an execution." The helicopter sounds faded, gave the signal, and his soldiers climbed from the ditch. They ran across open ground, spreading out as trained, heading for the tree line. They were 50 meters from cover when spotlights blazed from the sky, turning night into day. Dove for the ground, but 2 of his soldiers weren't fast enough. The helicopter opened fire, and they died in bursts of tracer rounds and explosions. "Scatter!" screamed. The surviving soldiers ran in different directions. The helicopter chose targets, its cannon tracking one soldier, then another. Crawled through dirt, using a small rise for cover, expecting bullets to find him any second. The helicopter moved on, following other targets. Lay still for long minutes, breathing hard, waiting for his hearts to stop pounding. When he finally looked up, he was alone. His soldiers were gone, dead or scattered so far he couldn't see them. He was the commander of an invasion force of 1 million soldiers. Now he was one alien hiding in a ditch, hunted by machines in the dark. Jake stood in the command center and watched status reports scroll across multiple screens. Each helicopter team reported targets serviced, grids cleared, survivors eliminated or captured. The numbers were efficient, clinical. 70 targets serviced per hour. Grid cleared in 20 minutes. Ammunition expended within acceptable parameters. War had become data management. "We're receiving surrender signals," Lisa said. "Multiple groups are using their emergency beacons. They're trying to give up." "How many?" "Current count is 43 groups, ranging from 5 to 50 individuals. More signals coming in every few minutes." Stepped up to the communications station. "All units, confirm rules of engagement. displaying surrender signals are to be secured and transported to processing centers, medical treatment for wounded, standard prisoner protocols. Some of the helicopter teams are asking for clarification, the communications officer said. They want to know if we're really accepting surrenders. Of course we are, said sharply. We're not monsters. We defended ourselves. The threat is neutralized. Any who surrenders will be treated according to international law and the Galactic Convention on Warfare. They don't follow the Galactic Convention, Jake pointed out. They don't take prisoners. We're not them, replied. Forward those orders. Any unit that fails to accept valid surrender will answer to me personally. Jake watched the surrender signals multiply on his display. Small groups of scattered across 50 square miles, giving up because they had no other choice. No hope of victory, no hope of rescue, just the slim hope that humans would show mercy they themselves never showed. The orbital fleet is moving, Lisa said suddenly. The ships are breaking orbit. Leaving their soldiers? Jake asked. Looks like it. They're accelerating toward the outer system, probably planning to jump to faster than light as soon as they clear Earth's gravity well. Let them go, said. Our space defense can handle them if they try anything hostile, but I think they've learned their lesson. Jake studied the fleet movements. 67 ships running away, abandoning hundreds of thousands of their own soldiers on the ground. So much for the mighty empire. They're not stupid, said. They recognize a lost battle when they see one. Their invasion doctrine assumed they'd face conventional resistance. Instead, they got processed like targets at a firing range. They're cutting their losses. What happens to the survivors? We hold them as prisoners until diplomatic channels can be established. We'll return them to their empire with a clear message. Earth is off limits. Any future aggression will be met with the same response. Lisa looked up from her console. Final casualty estimates are coming in. Dead, approximately 700,000. Wounded, 200,000. Captured or surrendering, 100,000. Jake did the math in his head. 70% casualties in under 24 hours. Against human casualties of 38, all minor injuries during cleanup operations, Lisa added. This wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration. A demonstration of what? Jake asked. Of what happens when you bring pre-industrial tactics to a fight with a post-industrial opponent, said. There have been conquering species who fight like they do. Mass armies, territorial control, face-to-face combat. They assumed everyone fights that way. But we don't. No, we learned centuries ago that warfare isn't about courage or glory. It's about logistics, technology, and efficient application of force. They came here expecting a fair fight. We gave them geometry and precision weapons instead. Ground forces began moving into the combat zone at dawn. Marines in armored vehicles, engineers with clearing equipment, medical teams prepared for mass casualties. Jake accompanied one of the first units into the valley system. What he saw would stay with him forever. The valley floor was cratered like a moonscape. Destroyed vehicles lay scattered everywhere, torn apart by explosions. Bodies and parts of bodies lay where they had fallen, thousands of them, so many that the ground forces had to carefully navigate to avoid disturbing the dead. My God, breathed Lieutenant Carl Porter, the Marine officer leading Jake's escort. I've seen combat footage, but this is different. What's different? Jake asked. In combat footage, you see fighting, troops taking cover, returning fire, tactical movement. This doesn't look like a battle. It looks like an industrial accident. Jake understood what he meant. There were no signs of a fight, no defensive positions, no areas where soldiers had gathered to make a stand, just impact craters and scattered remains. They had been destroyed so quickly and so completely that they never had a chance to fight back. They found their first group of survivors an hour later. 12 soldiers huddled in a collapsed building, all wounded, their emergency beacon flashing. Medical teams moved in carefully, hands visible, showing they were unarmed. The aliens flinched away at first, expecting death. When they realized the humans were offering help, several of them broke down completely. Jake watched medics treat alien wounds with the same care they would show human casualties. Bandages, pain medication, gentle handling of broken limbs. Why are we helping them? One of the Marines asked. After what they came here to do. Because that's what we do, Lieutenant Porter replied. We're soldiers, not murderers. The fighting is over. Now we take care of the wounded. Jake walked through more of the battlefield, documenting everything for his reports. He found scattered personal items, equivalent of photographs, what might have been letters, small belongings the soldiers had carried. Reminders that despite their alien appearance, they were individuals with lives and families. In another collapsed structure, he found something that made him stop. A soldier dead with what looked like a child's drawing clutched in one hand. The drawing showed crude stick figures, probably the soldier's family. "You okay, sir?" one of his escorts asked. "Yeah," Jake said quietly. "Just remembering that wars are fought by real people, even when one side makes it look easy." By mid-afternoon, processing centers were filling with prisoners. Medical teams worked around the clock treating wounds. Linguists struggled to communicate with the survivors, trying to explain that they were safe, that they would be cared for and eventually returned home. Was brought to the main processing center in the evening. He had been captured by a Marine patrol after spending 18 hours hiding in various ditches and ruins. He was exhausted, dehydrated, and suffering from minor shrapnel wounds. A human medic cleaned and bandaged his injuries while tried to understand what was happening. The humans were treating him gently, giving him water, medical care, speaking in calm voices even though he couldn't understand their language. Why, his people would have executed prisoners or left them to die. That was the way. The weak did not deserve mercy, but these humans were showing mercy despite having every reason for revenge. Jake watched from the observation area as medical teams processed hundreds of wounded. General stood beside him, her expression unreadable. "What are you thinking?" Jake asked. "I'm thinking that we just taught the galaxy a very dangerous lesson," replied. "We showed them that Earth can destroy a 1,000,000-soldier invasion force with barely a scratch, that we fight with a level of efficiency that makes conventional warfare obsolete. Isn't that a good thing? Won't it make others think twice before attacking us? Maybe, or maybe it makes us look like monsters who wage war without mercy or honor," gestured at the processing center. "We killed 700,000 beings in one day, Jake. Yes, they came here to kill us. Yes, it was self-defense. But the ease with which we did it is going to terrify every species that hears about this. So we're supposed to fight with one hand tied behind our backs, to make it fair. No, but we need to understand what we've become. We've turned warfare into an industrial process. We don't fight wars anymore. We service targets, and that's going to change how the galaxy sees us." 3 days after the invasion ended, Defense Minister Peter stood before the Global Security Council and presented his report. The chamber was silent as he displayed the casualty figures, the timeline of engagement, the final disposition of survivors. Total operation time from first weapons release to cessation of organized resistance, 19 hours, Peter said. Human casualties, 42 personnel with minor injuries, mostly sustained during cleanup operations. 0 combat deaths. "And asked the Japanese representative. 700,000 confirmed dead, 200,000 wounded, currently receiving medical treatment in our facilities. 100,000 captured with minor or no injuries. Total cost in munitions and operational expenses, approximately 8 billion credits. The Chinese representative leaned forward. "You're telling us we defeated a 1,000,000-soldier invasion force with essentially 0 casualties and the cost of a few fighter jets?" "That's correct. The deployed using tactics suited for conventional warfare against opponents who fight similarly. We did not accommodate their tactical preferences." "That's one way to put it," said the European Federation representative. "Another way would be to say we slaughtered them without giving them a chance to fight back." Peter met her eyes. "Would you have preferred we send our soldiers to die in a fair fight? Because that's what they expected. They counted on us meeting them with mass armies, fighting battle lines, engaging in conventional warfare where their numerical superiority would guarantee victory. Instead, we used every technological advantage we possessed to minimize our casualties and eliminate the threat efficiently." "Efficiently," she repeated. "You make it sound like waste management." Modern warfare is waste management. It's logistics, mathematics, and resource allocation. The side that can deliver more firepower more accurately to more targets in less time wins. We won, they lost. Earth is safe. "But at what cost to our humanity?" asked another representative. General, sitting beside Peter, spoke up. The cost to our humanity would have been allowing 1 million hostile soldiers to rampage across Earth, killing our people. They don't negotiate. They don't accept surrender. Every species they've conquered was exterminated or enslaved. We stopped them, cleanly, decisively, and yes, efficiently. The other galactic species are terrified of us now, said the Indian representative. We've received 47 different communications in the past 2 days. Most of them want to know if we're planning to become conquerors ourselves. And what have you told them? Peter asked. That Earth has no territorial ambitions beyond our own system, that we only demonstrated defensive capability. But I'm not sure they believe it. They've seen what we can do. 700,000 casualties inflicted without losing a single soldier. That's not defense, that's dominance. Peter pulled up tactical recordings of the battle. Let me show you what dominance actually looks like. This is the formation 2 minutes before first weapons release. The screens showed the alien army from satellite view. Neat columns, organized ranks, heavy weapons clustered together. It looked like something from a historical documentary. The fight this way because it worked against everyone they've encountered. Mass armies meeting in open combat, territorial advancement, simple tactics. They've conquered 73 worlds using this approach. Peter advanced the footage. This is 30 seconds after weapons release. The neat formations dissolved into chaos. Explosions rippled through the ranks. The organized army became scattered groups running in all directions. This is not dominance, Peter said. This is what happens when someone brings 19th century tactics to a 22nd century fight. We didn't invent some new horror. We just used the tools we've spent centuries developing. Precision weapons, real-time intelligence, coordinated fire support, the same tools we've been using in regional conflicts for generations. Then why does it feel different? Asked the European representative. Because of scale, said. We've never had to use these capabilities against such a large force before. But the principle is the same. Identify targets, service targets, move to next targets, that's what we did. Jake entered the chamber and approached Peter. Sir, we have a situation. The survivors are asking to speak with our leadership. I thought we didn't share a language yet, Peter said. We don't, but they've been trying to communicate through gestures and drawings. The linguists have pieced together enough to understand they want to send a message to their empire. They're asking for our help to do it. Peter looked at your thoughts. Let's hear what they have to say. Bring their senior surviving officer to a secure conference room. We'll need translators and recording equipment. 20 minutes later, stood in a human conference room surrounded by armed guards. His wounds had been treated and bandaged. He had been given food, water, and rest. But his eyes showed the hollowness of complete defeat. A human brought in a portable computer and opened translation software. It was primitive, requiring to draw symbols and point to objects while the software tried to build a vocabulary. The process was slow and frustrating. After an hour, basic communication was possible, could convey simple concepts. The humans could understand and respond. Why did you not kill us? Asked through the translator. The words came out choppy and mechanical, but the meaning was clear. Peter, sitting across the table, considered the question. Because you surrendered. According to our laws and the Galactic Convention, surrendered soldiers become prisoners, not targets. We would have killed your prisoners. We know, but we are not you. We have rules about how we conduct warfare. One of those rules is that we don't kill people who surrender. Translator struggled with the concept. This makes you weak. Does it? You came here with 1 million soldiers. We destroyed your army in less than a day. You're sitting here alive only because we choose to let you live. Which of us is weak? Had no answer to that. You want to send a message to your empire, said. What message? Drew symbols on the translator. The words came out slowly. Warning, tell them Earth is dangerous. Not like other worlds, they fight different. We cannot win against them. Will your empire listen? They will see the recordings. They will count the dead. They will listen. Peter nodded. We'll help you send your message, but we have our own message to add. Earth is willing to establish peaceful relations with the Empire. We will return all prisoners unharmed. But any future aggression will be met with the same response you just experienced. Make sure your leaders understand that. They will understand. They fear you now. Good, said. Fear prevents stupid decisions. We don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone. That evening, Jake sat with Lisa in the officer's lounge, both nursing coffee and trying to process everything that had happened. The battle, the casualties, the aftermath. "I've been reviewing the tactical recordings," Lisa said. "Analyzing what happened from the perspective, it must have been terrifying." "War is always terrifying." This was different, though. They never saw us coming, never had a chance to fire back. From their perspective, they landed, started marching, and then the world exploded around them. No warning, no enemy to fight, just death from the sky. "You sound like you feel sorry for them," Jake said. "I do, a little. They were just soldiers following orders, Jake. Most of them probably didn't even want to be here. But their empire sent them to die, and we killed them efficiently enough that it barely even rated as a challenge. Would you have preferred we let them kill us instead, to make it fair?" "No, but I think General was right. We've become something the galaxy has never seen before. We've turned warfare into industrial processing. Target identification, weapons delivery, casualty assessment. It's all just data and procedures now." Jake set down his coffee. "Humans have always been good at war, Lisa. We've fought each other for thousands of years. We've gotten very, very efficient at killing. The only difference now is we're fighting aliens instead of each other. That's what worries me. If we're this efficient at killing, what does that make us? Survivors, they came here expecting to conquer us like they conquered 73 other species. Those species probably fought bravely, honorably. Using conventional tactics and hopping courage would be enough. It wasn't. They all died or were enslaved. And we didn't because we fight dirty. We fight smart. There's a difference. Dirty implies we broke rules. We didn't. We just used every advantage we had. That's not dishonorable. That's practical." Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Did you see the thing they found? One of the dead was holding a picture, probably his family." "I saw it. I also saw the intelligence reports about what they do to conquered populations. Mass executions, forced labor, separation of families. That soldier with the picture, if we had lost, he would have been doing those things to human families. Don't waste sympathy on people who came here to kill us." "I'm not sympathizing with them. I'm just remembering their people, even when one side makes killing them look easy." The next morning, Earth broadcast a message to the Empire and to every other spacefaring species in the galaxy. The message was simple and direct. "This is Earth. 3 days ago, the Empire launched an invasion of our world with 1 million soldiers. That invasion has been defeated. We are holding approximately 300,000 prisoners who will be returned unharmed through neutral channels." The message included tactical recordings of the battle, not to gloat but to educate, to show exactly what had happened and why. "Earth has no territorial ambitions beyond our own solar system. We do not seek conquest or conflict. However, we will defend ourselves using every capability we possess. The invasion force was defeated because they attempted conventional warfare against an opponent who fights differently." The recordings showed the precision bombing, the artillery strikes, the systematic elimination of forces. "We are willing to establish peaceful diplomatic relations with any species that approaches us with honest intentions. But any civilization contemplating aggression should study these recordings carefully. This is what happens when you bring pre-industrial tactics to a modern battlefield." The message ended with a simple statement. "Earth is defended. Earth will remain defended. Choose peace." Across the galaxy, military leaders and government officials watched the recordings in stunned silence. They saw the army destroyed with mechanical efficiency. They saw human weapons service targets from distances they couldn't reach. They saw warfare reduced to mathematics and logistics. The Empire received the message in their capital. The ruling council watched the recordings 3 times, each viewing more disturbing than the last. They saw their invasion force systematically destroyed. They saw surrender as the only option. They saw humans treating prisoners with mercy they themselves never showed. "This cannot stand," one council member said. "They humiliated us. We must respond with force." The military commander, an old veteran of 50 conquests, shook his head. "No, we must respond with wisdom. Earth has shown us something we refuse to see, that our way of war is obsolete against certain opponents. We could send 10 million soldiers, 20 million, it wouldn't matter. They would just use more bombs. So we do nothing. We accept their offer of peace. We take back our survivors. We add Earth to the list of worlds we never approach again. And we pray they never decide to come after us, because if they do, we have no defense against their way of war. That decision, made reluctantly by the Council, would shape galactic politics for generations. Earth became known as the world where a million-soldier invasion was defeated in less than a day. The world where humans fought not with courage or honor, but with cold, terrifying efficiency. Some species admired Earth for it. Others feared Earth because of it. But all of them respected the lesson they had learned the hard way. When humans fight, they fight to win. And they're very, very good at it. 2 weeks after the battle, the prisoner exchange began. Neutral transport ships arrived in Earth orbit, sent by a species that maintained diplomatic relations with both humans and. The wounded were loaded first, still receiving medical care from human doctors who accompanied them to ensure proper treatment continued. Jake stood in the transport bay and watched the aliens board the ships. Many of them looked back at Earth with expressions he couldn't read. Fear maybe, or confusion. They had come to conquer and been destroyed. Then their enemies had saved their lives and were sending them home. Was among the last to board. He approached Jake before entering the transport, his translator device active. "I do not understand humans," he said through the mechanical voice. "What don't you understand? Why you are kind to us. We came to kill you to take your world, but you treat us with mercy." Jake thought about how to answer. "Because the war is over, you lost, we won. What happens after that determines what kind of species we are. We could have killed all of you. It would have been easier than keeping you alive. But that's not who we want to be. The Empire would not have shown such mercy. We know, we read your history. That's why we fought you the way we did. You don't understand mercy, so we made sure you understood force. Now maybe you'll understand both." Was silent for a moment. "You fight without honor, killing from distances where we cannot see you, using machines instead of facing us with courage." "Honor doesn't keep soldiers alive," Jake replied. "Your people value honor and courage, that's admirable. But when you brought those values here, you lost 700,000 soldiers. We value effectiveness and keeping our people safe. That's why we won. You are dangerous. Only to people who attack us. Go home, tell your empire what happened here. Tell them that Earth wants peace but is prepared for war. And tell them that if they come back, the result will be the same." The former commander nodded slowly and entered the transport. Jake watched it depart, carrying 300,000 survivors back to the empire that had sent them to die. General found Jake in the observation deck an hour later. She stood beside him, watching Earth below. "Having second thoughts?" she asked. "About what?" "About how we fought, the efficiency of it, the coldness." Jake shook his head. "No second thoughts. We did what needed to be done. But I keep thinking about that soldier with the picture of his family. I wonder if his family knows he's dead. I wonder if they understand why." "They probably think he died heroically in battle," said. "The culture values warrior deaths. They won't tell the families that their soldiers were slaughtered before they could even fight. It would be too shameful." "Is that better or worse, dying without even getting to fight?" "I don't know, maybe you should ask our soldiers if they'd prefer to die heroically in close combat or go home alive because we fought smart." Turned to face him. "You're being reassigned, Jake. The diplomatic corps wants you." "I'm a military officer, not a diplomat." "You're someone who understands what happened here and can explain it to other species. The galaxy is terrified of us right now. Half the species out there think we're monsters. The other half want to learn our tactics. We need people who can navigate that situation." "What am I supposed to tell them?" "The truth, that Earth doesn't seek conflict but won't tolerate aggression. That we fight with every advantage we can muster because we value our people's lives. That efficiency isn't cruelty, it's practicality." "Some of them won't accept that." "I know, some species have concepts of honor and fair combat that they consider sacred. They'll see what we did as cowardly or dishonorable. You need to make them understand that we don't care about their opinion of our honor. We care about protecting Earth." Jake thought about that. "When do I start?" "Next week. There's a diplomatic conference on the 40 species attending. They want to discuss Earth's military capabilities and intentions. You'll be part of the delegation." "Great, so I get to stand in a room full of aliens and explain why we're not planning to kill them all." Smiled slightly. "Welcome to post-war politics, much more complicated than actual warfare." The conference took place in a massive orbital station above the Representatives from 40 different species gathered in a chamber designed to accommodate various atmospheric requirements. Jake sat with the Earth delegation, feeling remarkably out of place among career diplomats. The moderator opened the session. We are gathered to discuss the recent conflict between Earth and the Empire. Many questions have arisen about Earth's military capabilities and intentions. We hope to achieve clarity and establish protocols for future interactions. A representative from the Alliance spoke first. They were a four-armed species known for their military traditions. Earth destroyed a 1,000,000-soldier invasion force with essentially no casualties. This level of combat effectiveness is unprecedented in recorded galactic history. We would like to understand how this was achieved. The Earth ambassador, an older woman named Helen Park, gestured to Jake. Lieutenant Colonel was involved in the operation. He can speak to the tactical aspects. Jake stood aware of dozens of alien eyes focused on him. They used conventional assault tactics, mass formations, predictable movements, concentration of forces. We engaged them with precision weapons from beyond their effective range. The operation was successful because they never adapted to our methods. You ambushed them, they said. You attacked without honor, without giving them a chance to fight. We defended our world using the most effective means available. They came to conquer us. We stopped them. How is that dishonorable? You killed them from a distance, without facing them, without giving them an opportunity for combat. Jake felt anger rising but kept his voice calm. Would you have preferred we sent our soldiers to die in close combat, to make it fair for the attackers? They showed no honor when they invaded. They planned to kill or enslave our entire population. We don't owe honor to people trying to kill us. A different species, spoke up. But surely you understand how this appears to other species. You possess weapons that can destroy armies without risk to yourselves. What prevents you from using these weapons for conquest? The same thing that prevented us from using them before we were attacked, Jake said. We don't want to conquer anyone, we never have. Humans spent centuries fighting each other before we unified. We learned hard lessons about the cost of war. We're not interested in repeating those mistakes on a galactic scale. Then why develop such devastating capabilities? Because the galaxy is full of species like the aggressive, expansionist, willing to use force to take what they want. We developed these capabilities to defend ourselves. The fact that they work well doesn't make us conquerors, it makes us prepared. The conference continued for hours. Species after species questioned Earth's intentions, asked about their capabilities, debated the ethics of precision warfare. Jake answered as honestly as he could. Yes, Earth could defeat most conventional militaries with minimal casualties. No, Earth had no plans for territorial expansion. Yes, Earth would defend itself and its allies using every advantage available. During a break, a delegate from the Federation approached Jake. They were a peaceful species, known for their philosophical traditions. You make warfare sound like engineering, they said. All efficiency and calculations, does this not trouble you? Of course it troubles me, Jake said. I've seen the battlefield, walked through the bodies, met the survivors. It's not abstract for me. But what troubles me more is the alternative. Letting our soldiers die in avoidable combat because someone else thinks there's a right way to fight. There is wisdom in restraint, in choosing not to use your full capability. We showed restraint. We could have killed all the prisoners. We didn't. We could have chased their fleet and destroyed it. We didn't. We used exactly the force necessary to stop the invasion and no more. That's restraint. Perhaps you are simply efficient at everything, including mercy. Jake had no answer to that. The conference ended with a series of protocols and agreements. Earth would share basic information about its defensive capabilities with allied species. In return, those species would help establish Earth's reputation as a defensive power, not an aggressive one. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Back on Earth, Lisa Grant had been promoted to Major and given responsibility for analyzing the battle for training purposes. She sat in an empty classroom and reviewed footage she had watched 100 times already. The bombing runs, the artillery strikes, the helicopter engagements, all of it clean, efficient, devastatingly effective, and all of it deeply disturbing when you really looked at it. She pulled up casualty statistics and cross-referenced them with historical battles. The had lost 700,000 soldiers. That was more than died in most Earth wars, and it had happened in 19 hours. What did it say about humanity that they could do this? That they could reduce warfare to such brutal efficiency? Her office door opened and Peter entered. "Major Grant, I hear you're developing training materials on the engagement." "Yes, sir. Tactical analysis for officer training courses." "Good, we need to make sure future commanders understand what we did and why." Peter sat down. "You look troubled." "I am, sir. I'm trying to figure out how to teach this battle without making it seem like we're proud of what happened." "Are we not proud? We defended Earth. We saved millions of lives. We killed 700,000 beings in less than a day, sir. I'm not sure proud is the right word." Peter was quiet for a moment. "You're right. Proud isn't correct. Effective is the right word. Necessary is the right word. We did what needed to be done to protect our world. That's not something to be ashamed of, but it's also not something to celebrate." "How do I teach that distinction?" "By being honest about what war is. It's not glory or honor. It's not adventure or excitement. War is organized violence with the goal of achieving political objectives while minimizing your own casualties. We're very good at that. They learned that the hard way. And if other species attack us, then they'll learn the same lesson. Earth doesn't start wars, but we finish them, efficiently." 6 months later, Earth's reputation in the galaxy had. Some species admired human ingenuity and defensive capability. Others feared human ruthlessness and technological advantage. But all of them understood one simple fact. Earth was not to be invaded. The Empire quietly added Earth to their restricted worlds list. They returned to conquering species who fought conventionally, who met them army to army. They never spoke publicly about their defeat, but privately, their military academies studied the battle as an example of what happens when tactical doctrine fails to adapt. Jake served another 3 years in the diplomatic corps before returning to Earth. He had visited 30 worlds, met hundreds of species, and explained Earth's position countless times. Some understood, some never would, but all of them knew the cost of aggression now. He stood in the Kansas Valley where the battle had happened. A memorial had been built there, not celebrating the victory but remembering the cost. 700,000 dead, their names inscribed in stone, translated into English so humans would remember they had been individuals, not just targets. "You come here often?" a voice asked behind him. Jake turned to see, now retired from active service. "Sometimes, when I need to remember what all those briefings and tactical discussions really mean." Bodies on a battlefield. People who came here expecting to win and died before they understood what they were facing. Stood beside him looking at the memorial. "Do you regret it, how we fought?" "No, but I don't celebrate it either. We did what we had to do, that's enough. The galaxy still doesn't know what to make of us." "Good, let them wonder, let them worry. As long as they leave us alone, I don't care what they think." Smiled, spoken like a true diplomat. They stood together in silence, 2 soldiers looking at a memorial to enemies they had destroyed efficiently and without mercy. The monument stood as a warning and a reminder. Earth could fight. Earth would fight. But Earth fought on its own terms, using every advantage technology and training could provide. The galaxy had learned that lesson at the cost of 700,000 lives. The memorial bore a simple inscription in both English and script. "Here fell those who came to conquer and learned that humanity fights not with honor, but with precision. May all who read this understand what awaits those who mistake efficiency for weakness." Jake read it every time he visited. A reminder that warfare had changed, that humans had changed it, and that the galaxy would never quite be the same again. Above the memorial, Earth continued its journey around the sun, defended, prepared, and very, very efficient at what it did best.